Hello, I'm Stacey Mallory, and welcome to Chargers Talk 4630. If this is your first time here, I welcome you and ask that you follow this podcast by pressing on the subscribe button. This way, you'll be notified whenever there's a podcast going on live or we release the latest content. You can also listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And please check out some hot topics involving the Chargers on stormcloud.blog, which is run by our very own Kyle D. So the Chargers finalized their 53-man roster at the deadline yesterday, and we knew a lot of them young guys played hard trying to impress this new regime in hopes of taking advantage of the opportunity to become a full-time player in the National Football League. Even though this was a horrendous preseason for Easton Stick, to my surprise, he is still on the Chargers roster and Herbert's backup. I know the Browns kept 4 quarterbacks, and the speculation was that they would release Tyler Huntley. And many of us think he would be a good fit for this Chargers offense, especially because he played in it under Greg Roman while backing up Lamar Jackson. But Cleveland did sign him to their 53-man roster. I just don't think what Stick has put on paper, and that's just not how he played in the preseason, but what he's done overall since he's been in the league, I just don't think he's done enough to be on this roster. Now, look, Ortiz and Harbaugh has forgotten more football than I'll ever know. However, I do not believe this is the final 53-man roster. I believe they fear the same thing that we do as fans, and that's Justin Herbert having an injury that keeps him out about 2 games, and this is what the offense will look like. I think a backup quarterback will be signed soon in the coming days, and Easton Stick will be released. That's just my opinion. One of the surprise moves while finalizing this roster, at least for me, was to see them cut Donald Parham. Parham been with the Chargers for 4 years now, but he just didn't appear to fit what Harbaugh wants from a tight end. He's known to be a better pass catcher than a blocker and has always had problems staying on the field. So I never felt he could reach his full potential if most of the time he's not available. But I still thought you can get more out of him than Stone Smart, but that's just how I feel about it. But that was one of my surprises. Here's the other surprise for me, and that was cutting Trayvon Morris-Brash. I was impressed by this young man. I know he wasn't drafted, but he had a really good camp for this team. But it obviously wasn't enough because he still got cut. The Chargers decided to roll with the 4 edge rushers they got: Bosa, Mack, Tui Pelotu, and Bud Dupree. Therefore, leaving Trayvon out. My hopes is that we bring him back and put him on the practice squad. Having a good camp and playing well in preseason and getting that pick 6 off Trey Lance and taking it to the house, he looks like, to me, he's going to be a solid player in this league. And if any one of these edge rushers should miss some time, he could be activated and be a solid backup for us. I'm happy for Tony Jefferson, who played out of his mind, and he definitely earned his spot on this roster. The impact he had on that game was crazy good, and the stats speak for themselves, so congratulations to Tony Jefferson. What was another surprise, after everyone seemed to be worried about, are we going to keep Simi Fehoko or cut Brendan Rice, or can there be a scenario where we keep both? Well, the Chargers shocked a lot of us by keeping 7 receivers on the roster. There were so many analysts that had the Chargers cutting Brendan Rice off this roster, but the team obviously felt he would not clear waivers in order to be put on the practice squad, and that's just not a chance that they was willing to take, and I agree. I was also worried he would get cut as well. I mean, you can clearly see what Brendan Rice can be for this offense when you see the bombs that Herbert was throwing to him in the practices and at camp. But unfortunately, due to the bad play of Easton Stick in the preseason, we never got to see Brendan Rice show off what he could do, which is what led people to speculate that he may be cut in the first place. Now, I have always trusted this new regime because their track record says you should. But overall, I'm happy with seeing how this roster turned out under the first Harbaugh-Ortiz season. I like how it looks, and I think we will surprise a lot of people who can't see this team winning more than 6 games. I don't believe that. There's too much talent and too good of a coaching staff that's in place, and I'm very optimistic about this season. And finally, I'll end with a great quote from the great Vince Lombardi. Football is like life. It requires perseverance, self-denial, hard work, sacrifice, dedication, and respect. And I believe this is the perfect way to describe this new regime and this coaching staff. And that's one of the reasons why I'm sold on them doing some great things together this year. Well, that's it for this episode, and thanks for joining us on Chargers Talk 4630. We thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to log on to stormcloud.blog to check out more content covering the Chargers, as well as great topics from other bloggers that writes for that website as well. We thank you, the viewers, for always tuning in, engaging with us in the chat room with your comments and questions. And if you joined us for the first time today and like the content here and would like to support this podcast, please don't forget to follow us by clicking on the subscribe button. You can also follow and listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget, share this with someone who may not have tuned into us yet. And we can't thank you enough about how much we appreciate you as well as your support. And until then, be safe, be well, be good, enjoy the rest of your week, and let's get ready for our retribution game against those Raiders. Bolt up.